Book 1. Tarot as a Path. The Meaning and Origins of Tarot. Chapter 1. Before the Beginning. Tarot is, in essence, a system of symbols created so that a person may better understand themselves, their inner states, and the situations unfolding in their life. It is not magic, not a sentence, and not a ready-made way to know the future. Tarot is, in a sense, a language of images and symbols through which one can speak with the unconscious part of oneself, honestly and deeply. A tarot deck consists of images filled with symbols. These symbols reflect universal human experiences: choice, fear, growth, loss, hope, love, doubt, endings, and new beginnings. This is why tarot resonates with people of different cultures, ages, and worldviews. We recognize ourselves in these images, even if we cannot immediately explain why.
When we lay out the cards, they do not announce a fixed future scenario. Instead, they show tendencies, inner conflicts, and possible directions of movement. It is similar to a map. A map does not force you to take a particular road, but it helps you understand where you are and which paths you may choose to reach your destination. The choice always remains yours. In tarot, there are no bad or good cards. There are cards that speak of crises, fears, or endings, and cards that speak of joy, love, and growth. Yet both represent stages of life. For example, the Death card does not speak of physical death, but of the ending of a phase. The Tower speaks of the collapse of what can no longer stand. The Moon does not show madness, but fears and uncertainty that must be passed through on the path towards self-understanding.
Tarot does not require a special gift or chosen status. The cards do not replace thinking, responsibility, or action. They simply help us ask the right questions and see a situation more broadly. For this reason, tarot can be called a tool of awareness. It does not tell you what to do, but it helps you understand why you are standing where you are and what is happening inside you. Tarot does not oppose logic, psychology, or free will. On the contrary, it works where a person needs to hear themselves, understand their feelings, see the causes of what is happening, and make more conscious decisions. This is why tarot continues to live and develop despite myths, fears, and prejudices. The first and perhaps the most natural reaction is fear of the unknown. Imagine entering a dark room without knowing what is inside. Even if there is only a chair and a table, until you switch on the light and see what is there, your heart may beat faster than usual. It is the same with tarot cards. Those who do not understand how they work often think of them as something mysterious and therefore dangerous. For example, a grandmother might say, "Don't bring those into the house, they are dark forces." Not because she has seen any dark forces, but simply because she has never encountered tarot before.
Everything new and unfamiliar can feel frightening at first. People are afraid that the cards might reveal something they would rather not know. But tarot is not a verdict. It simply shows where you are now and what paths lie open before you. It is like a mathematics test. If someone says, "You will definitely fail," it is frightening at first. But there is always a choice. You can prepare and do better. Some people fear tarot because of religious or cultural beliefs. Someone may say, "It is a sin, it is forbidden, it is from the devil." But very often behind such words lies a simple fear of everything unfamiliar. It is similar to how people talk about computer games. Some say games are addiction, but in reality there are many different kinds of games. Some are about building cities, managing farms, or solving puzzles, while others are about chaos and destruction. It is the same with tarot. The cards themselves are neutral. They are simply a tool, and it is important to learn how to use them.
There is another fear that people do not always speak about openly: the fear of losing control. People sometimes think that if they do a reading, the cards will tell them how to live, leaving them no choice. But the cards decide nothing for us. They are like a navigation system on a phone. It can suggest a route, show traffic, and offer a new direction. But whether you follow that route or not is entirely your decision. If you turn in another direction, the navigator simply recalculates the route. Tarot works in the same way. It helps you see the path, but the right to choose always remains yours. In the end, it becomes clear that all these fears are natural, and each of them has its own explanation. But if we look a little deeper, we discover that people are not really afraid of the cards themselves, but of what the cards might reveal, something important that was hidden within the person all along. Because tarot works like a mirror, and a mirror does not invent anything. It simply reflects what already exists. Sometimes that reflection is pleasant, sometimes not, but in every case, it is useful. To fear tarot is much like fearing to look at your own thoughts or feelings. It is far wiser to learn to see and understand them than to run away from them. When you become more familiar with the tarot system, you suddenly realize that the better you learn to understand this language, the calmer and clearer your inner world becomes.
What qualities are important when working with tarot? The necessary beginning for deep understanding. When you begin to get acquainted with tarot, it is important not only to learn the meanings of the cards, but also to develop certain inner qualities. It is like packing a backpack before setting off on a journey. Without these qualities, the cards will remain silent or confuse you. With them, they become true companions on the path. Tarot asks the reader for sensitivity, honesty, trust, and the ability to be attentive. These qualities do not appear in a single day. They develop through practice. Yet it is precisely through them that the cards begin to speak to you in their living symbolic language. Of course, you can start laying out the cards without this inner preparation, but the result will be like trying to speak with a person who uses sign language without knowing that language yourself. You will see gestures, but understanding their meaning will be very difficult. Guesswork alone cannot reveal the full depth of what is being said.
Intuition. Let us begin with intuition. Tarot develops intuition beautifully. Intuition is the ability to notice subtle hints, to assemble a whole picture from seemingly random details. Imagine watching a film. From a single glance of a character, you suddenly understand that he is hiding something. Or you notice that your friend is not quite herself today, even though she smiles at you. That is intuition. The cards help to train this ability. They show that in life, everything is connected: events, feelings, and thoughts. Tarot is like a training ground for intuition. The more you practice, the sharper your perception becomes, and the easier it is to connect signs into one coherent picture. Intuition is not a magical gift given only to a chosen few. It is a natural quality that belongs to every human being. In some people it sleeps, in others it is already awake. When you look at a card, you see an image, a person, an animal, symbols, colors. But behind the image, there is something more. You may feel something, think something, or even experience a physical sensation, perhaps a slight chill or warmth. This is intuition at work. It connects your inner experience with the image on the card and helps you find meaning. Imagine you look at the card, the Tower. Someone might say, "Oh, this is destruction," but your intuition may whisper something else. This is when old rules collapse so that you can finally breathe freely. The same symbol opens differently because intuition colors it with your personal experience. Sometimes intuition works like a flash. You suddenly know the answer, even though you cannot explain why. Sometimes it is like a quiet whisper that you must learn to hear. The more you work with the cards, the clearer this inner voice becomes. It is important to understand that intuition is not fantasy and not random imagination. It is based on sensitivity, on the ability to notice connections between events, and on the experience you have already lived through. Tarot gives the key. Intuition opens the door.
Exercise for developing intuition with tarot. Take any card in your hands. Simply look at the image and ask yourself, what do I feel when I look at this? Write down the first thing that comes to your mind, even if it seems strange or silly. In this way, you begin to trust your inner signals and realize that your intuition is always there beside you. Inner honesty. Another very important quality in working with tarot is honesty with yourself. This means the ability to accept the answer of the cards as it is, even if it does not match your wishes. It means being able to say to yourself, yes, I am really afraid, or yes, I am not doing anything for my own success right now.
It is the ability to notice your emotions and separate them from the essence of the card's message. This is perhaps the most difficult quality. Sometimes we really want the cards to show exactly the answer we want. For example, you ask, "Does he love me?" And you hope the answer will only be yes. But if the cards show something else, it is important to be honest with yourself and hear the true message. In fact, tarot very quickly shows not only the essence of a situation, but also how a person relates to themselves. And this is where inner honesty becomes essential. In such moments, there is a great temptation to interpret the cards in a convenient way. But this is exactly when tarot tests us. Will we see the truth, or will we close our eyes to it? Why is this important? Because the cards always reflect our inner state and the situation around us. If we are honest with ourselves, tarot becomes a mirror in which we can see reality and find a solution. If we hide behind self-deception, the cards begin to seem unclear or confusing. Sometimes a person is so emotionally involved that honesty temporarily disappears. For example, when it concerns strong love, fear of failure, or great hopes. In such cases, it is better to ask another person to do the reading, not because they are smarter, but because they look without your emotional filter.
Trust in tarot. When people first take a tarot deck in their hands, they often treat it with caution. Some think, what can these pictures possibly tell me? Others are afraid of seeing an unpleasant answer. Some treat the cards as a game. All of this is normal. At the beginning, trust rarely appears immediately. But the cards have an interesting way of earning trust. Imagine that you meet a new friend. At first, your conversations are superficial, and you do not yet know how much you can open yourself. But gradually, she begins to say important things, to understand you without many explanations. And one day, you suddenly think, yes, I can trust her. The same happens with tarot. When you do readings and see that the cards reflect your real feelings or accurately describe events happening in your life, a feeling appears. They understand me.
And together with this feeling, trust is born. It is important to remember, trust in tarot is not blind belief. It is experience that forms step by step. The cards do not demand worship, and they are not all-powerful. They are a tool. But the more you work with them, the clearer it becomes that they do not show random pictures, but meanings that are truly connected with your life. There is also another side of trust, your willingness to listen to what the cards say. Sometimes they show what you do not want to see, and here your sincerity is tested. To trust tarot means to accept both pleasant and difficult messages. Trust in tarot is born not from promises, but from practice. At first, it is like taking careful steps in the dark, and later it becomes a quiet confidence that you have a reliable compass that helps you navigate in that darkness. Working with tarot is not a performance for the sake of mystery. It is a practical tool for interaction with yourself and the world. In the context of self-knowledge, tarot is a mirror that reflects your inner state. Especially in difficult situations, tarot helps you step out of circular thinking and see new paths. But in any case, tarot requires awareness, attentiveness, and honesty. Only then does it begin to work deeply and effectively.
Inner concentration when working with tarot. When we speak about concentration, many people imagine a mathematics lesson, sitting straight, not getting distracted, thinking only about the problem. But concentration in tarot is different. It can be called soft attention. It is a state where outwardly you may look relaxed, but inwardly you are completely focused. You shift your attention from the outer world to your inner screen, and at the same time to the card in front of you. Imagine you are talking to a close friend. She is telling you something, and you listen so attentively that you do not even notice how time passes. You catch every intonation, every glance, and suddenly you understand even what she did not say aloud, but only meant. You receive not only the information from her words, but also the unspoken information. This is exactly the kind of concentration needed in tarot. When working with cards, we do the same thing, only instead of a friend, the tarot deck itself is speaking. If your mind keeps running everywhere, what homework do I have for tomorrow? Where did I put my phone? What if I interpret the card incorrectly? Then the message of the card simply disappears. Concentration in tarot is not tension. It is clarity, inner attention, collectedness, and trust in the present moment. When you open a card and allow yourself to see, feel, and notice what it shows, you do not stop your thoughts by force. You simply let them pass like clouds, while you keep your focus on the main question and the image in front of you. This state comes with practice, and the more often you work with the cards, the easier it becomes to enter it again and again. Openness and genuine interest. This is one of the first qualities that begins to awaken when you start working with tarot. Without openness, the cards remain silent. They simply do not respond if you approach them with rigid opinions and ready-made answers. Openness is the willingness to see the truth as it is, even when it does not match your expectations. It is the desire to explore rather than to confirm your assumptions. When you are open, you do not look to the cards for comfort or justification. You seek understanding of the information they offer. Sometimes a tarot reader sits down to do a reading already knowing what they want to hear. They draw a card and mentally adjust its meaning in the desired direction. But in that very moment, the cards become not a mirror of the situation, but a mirror of the reader's own hopes. Approach the cards with sincere interest, as if entering a living dialogue, and tarot begins to open in a completely different way. It shows you the connection between events and causes, between inner states and outer circumstances. Genuine interest is the state of a researcher, not a judge. It is when you look at a card and think, why do I see this? Or, what in me is responding to this image right now? Then the cards begin to speak in the language of your inner experience. Openness is not blind trust, it is inner flexibility, the ability to accept that life may not follow your script, yet may still lead you exactly where you need to be. Openness to the cards is like an open window through which fresh air enters. When the door is closed, the room fills with stale air of old thoughts. When the door is open, the wind of change enters, sometimes gentle, sometimes strong, but always alive. Try to notice how you approach your readings. If you find yourself wanting to hear only what you want to hear, tell yourself, perhaps the cards will show me what I truly need to see. In such moments, tarot becomes not a tool of control, but a tool of understanding. Because the true magic of tarot begins where there is no desire to control the answer, but only a sincere interest in truth. Myths and truth about the tarot system. Imagined prohibitions. How could we speak about tarot without speaking about myths? Tarot has always been surrounded by speculation and misunderstanding. To some, the cards seem mystical, frightening, even dangerous. This often happens because tarot readers themselves sometimes create an atmosphere of mystery and magic around the cards. But if we put fear aside and look more closely, it becomes clear. Tarot is not about intimidation and not about magic in the usual sense. It is an incredibly subtle language of symbols that helps us better understand ourselves, our situations, and make more conscious decisions. When we hear the word tarot, many people imagine a fortune teller in bright clothing, candles, and predictions about fate. Films and stories passed from generation to generation have repeated the same ideas. The cards are dangerous. They are connected with dark forces. If you draw a bad card, expect trouble.
This is how many myths appeared, distorting the essence of tarot. In reality, the cards are simply a language of images, a mirror for the soul. Myths are born because people are afraid to look into the unknown. It is easier to invent prohibitions than to admit that the cards show what already exists inside us, rather than imposing fate from outside. But when fear fades, a completely different understanding appears. Tarot is not witchcraft and not a verdict. Around tarot, there are always many conversations and prejudices. For some, the cards seem mystical, for others, dangerous. But in reality, most fears are based not on experience, but on myths. That is why it is worth dispelling common stereotypes and understanding where the truth lies and where there is only myth. Let us look at the most common ones. Myth 1. Tarot is witchcraft or black magic. People think this because the cards are surrounded by mysterious symbols and are often shown in films in dark atmospheres. But the truth is that tarot is not connected with magic in the usual sense. It is a language of symbols and a tool for self-knowledge. Through the cards, a person can see inner processes, understand feelings, hidden desires, and the causes of events. That is why tarot is used not only by esoteric practitioners, but also by psychologists, counselors, and people who simply want to understand themselves better. Myth 2. The cards predict the future with precision. This myth was born from the human desire to know everything in advance. But the future is not carved in stone. It changes depending on our decisions. The cards do not show a fixed scenario, but possible directions and tendencies. They help us understand, if we continue acting the way we are acting now, where will it lead? Tarot is not a verdict, but a navigator.
Myth 3. You must never let others touch your deck. This belief is connected with the fear of foreign energy. Indeed, some readers prefer that only the owner touches the deck, but there is no strict rule. The cards remain a tool, and what matters most is not whose hands touched them, but the attention and intuition of the reader. Myth 4. Tarot always tells the absolute truth. This myth appeared because the cards often reflect situations with surprising accuracy. But the cards do not show an absolute truth. They show the current state and the energy of the moment. Their language is symbolic, and it always requires interpretation. Accuracy depends on how the question was asked and how sensitively the reader works with images. Myth 5. If a bad card appears, something terrible will happen. People think this because of cards like Death or the Tower. In films, these cards are associated with catastrophe, and fear becomes fixed in the mind. But in tarot, there are no bad or good cards. Each card carries an experience and a lesson. Death speaks about the end of one stage and the beginning of another. The Tower speaks about the destruction of illusions to make space for truth. These cards do not threaten. They help us understand where change is necessary. Myth 6. Only chosen people can work with tarot. This myth comes from the idea of a gift from above, but the truth is that tarot is available to anyone who is willing to learn and practice. Intuition is a skill that develops. The more a person learns to listen to themselves and notice details, the more clearly they understand the language of the cards. Myth 7. Divination can program the future. This fear is connected with suggestion. If someone tells a person, "You will fail," they may believe it and give up. But the cards themselves do not program anything. They show a picture, and the decision always remains with the person. Myth 8. A tarot reader can predict something terrible. People think this because of frightening images and careless words of some practitioners. In reality, a professional tarot reader does not frighten people, but explains, if there are difficulties, why they appear and how they can be passed through. Even a difficult card is not a verdict, but a lesson and guidance.
Myth 9. After a reading, a person leaves without energy. This myth appeared because after a deep conversation, people can indeed feel tired. But this is not because of energy loss, but because emotions were touched and new realizations appeared. A good consultation actually brings clarity and strength for change. Myth 10. Tarot cards bring magical misfortune. People fear that frequent readings may attract trouble. This fear comes from old times when everything unusual was considered dangerous. But the cards are simply drawings on paper. The danger is not in them, but in how a person interprets what they see.
Myth 11. A tarot reader should work for free. This myth is based on the idea that if a gift is from above, money should not be taken. But any gift requires learning, time, and energy. Tarot reading is a profession like any other, and honest exchange is always important. Free readings may exist, but only if the reader chooses it themselves, not as an obligation. Myth 12. You should not read for yourself or for loved ones. This myth comes from the difficulty of being objective. Indeed, when it concerns ourselves or someone we love, emotions can interfere. But this does not mean it is forbidden, it means more honesty is needed. Sometimes it is better to postpone a reading or ask another reader, but there is no strict prohibition. Myth 13. After a reading, you must not say thank you. This myth comes from old times when the phrase thank you had religious meaning, but today it is simply politeness. Saying thank you is natural and appropriate. Myth 14. All fortune tellers are unhappy. This belief comes from the tendency to connect personal difficulties of tarot readers with their work. But difficulties exist in every profession. Problems arise when a person takes too much of others' burdens or forgets to take care of themselves. When a tarot reader knows how to maintain boundaries and restore their energy, their life can be harmonious and happy.
Myths only frighten and confuse people. They were born from fear, because tarot symbols speak directly to the subconscious, and this can frighten those who are used to living only through logic. In reality, tarot was never a tool for intimidation. Originally, it was a language of philosophy and self-knowledge, a way to study the laws of life and the cycles of destiny. But over time, tarot fell into the hands of street fortune tellers and charlatans. People saw theatrical scenes and mysterious rituals, and of course, believed that the cards possessed magical power. Later, the church declared tarot a demonic instrument, and interest became even more surrounded by fear and prohibition. But if we look at tarot calmly, it becomes clear. It is not mysticism and not a verdict. It is a mirror that helps us see ourselves honestly. Symbolic cards of awareness, an ancient system that helps us understand ourselves, our reactions, and our lessons. Fear and myths belong to the past, like a shadow of old misunderstanding. You already have everything you need to interpret the messages the cards give. Do not be afraid to gain more knowledge as you continue learning this system of self-knowledge. Your own intuition is the most valuable instrument in the interpretation of tarot cards.